When did you figure out someone despised you enough to destroy your life? Can you imagine waking up one day to find that your partner's mother isn't just overbearing, but a relentless, calculated force determined to erase you from existence? Because that's what happened to me. This isn't just a story about a bad mother-in-law. It's a terrifying tale of control, betrayal, and a family pushed to the absolute breaking point. My husband, Ryan, and we met in the most random place, a community emergency response training. Total meet cute, right? We clicked immediately. First, his family seemed normal. His dad, Michael, was quiet but nice. His sister, Tara, was actually super cool. But Deborah, oh my God, Deborah. The first hint that something was deeply wrong happened at our engagement dinner. Ryan stepped away to the bathroom for a minute, and that's when Deborah struck. She leaned across the table, a perfectly pleasant smile plastered on her face, and whispered, "I've waited too long for Ryan to find someone worthy. I won't let just anyone into our family." I actually laughed, thinking she was joking. But her eyes? They were dead serious. A chill went down my spine that I just couldn't shake. After we got married, things escalated fast. She'd show up at our apartment unannounced at 7 a.m. on weekends, dropping off food. But really, she was checking if we were both there. She'd call Ryan constantly with these fake emergencies. One time, she called him sobbing, convinced she was having a heart attack. We rushed over, hearts pounding, only to find her casually sitting on the couch watching TV. "Oh, the pain passed," she chirped. "Stay for dinner." I mean, what? I tried to talk to Ryan about it, but he just didn't see it. He'd been dealing with her manipulation his whole life. He thought it was normal. "That's just mom being protective," he'd say. And I'd just stare at him thinking, "No, Ryan, this is insane behavior." Things truly went nuclear when I got pregnant. We were over the moon but wanted to keep it private for a bit. Somehow Deborah knew before we told anyone. She just showed up at our door with a tiny baby outfit, holding it out with a saccharine smile. "For my grandbaby," she cooed. I was only 6 weeks along. 6 weeks. I hadn't even told my closest friends. When I asked her, baffled how she knew, she just smiled even wider. A mother always knows these things. My stomach dropped. 2 days later, I was checking our shared calendar on Ryan's iPad. That's when I saw them. These weird recurring appointment notifications. "Do check in every few days?" I clicked on one and my blood ran cold. They were scheduled calls with his mom where he was supposed to update her on everything about me and the pregnancy. She had been making him spy on me. Report back. When I confronted Ryan, he just crumbled. Tears streamed down his face, and he finally admitted it. Mom's always been like this. Controlling everything. He confessed she had access to all his accounts, read all our messages, and had even installed some family tracking app on his phone that he couldn't figure out how to remove. He said she threatened to cut him off from the family, completely, if he didn't keep her updated on everything. I was absolutely livid, but honestly, I was terrified. Who does this? We agreed right then and there to change all passwords and set firm boundaries. Ryan promised he'd stand up to her. That night, he called her, his voice shaking, and told her she needed to respect our privacy. She seemed to take it well, which honestly should have been a red flag. A huge flashing red flag. A week later, the really insidious stuff started. I began getting weird texts from numbers I didn't know, asking if I was still selling my wedding ring, or if I was still looking for divorce lawyers. Then my friends started calling, concerned, asking if Ryan and I were okay because they'd heard we were splitting up. It turned out Deborah had created fake profiles, pretending to be me on social media and in local groups, announcing my marriage was over and I was leaving Ryan. But the absolute worst? That came when my boss called me into his office. He looked incredibly uncomfortable. He showed me an email he'd received from my mother. My mom, who died when I was 16, mind you. The email claimed I had serious mental health issues and was making up my pregnancy for attention. It had private details about me that only someone close would know. I literally collapsed in his office. The room just spun. When we finally confronted Deborah with all the evidence, every single damning screenshot and text message, she didn't even deny it. She just looked me dead in the eyes, a cold, hard glare, and said, "Ryan deserves a real woman from a good family, not some orphan playing house." The air left my lungs. I was in shock, but Ryan finally went ballistic. He started yelling at her, for the first time in his entire life, telling her she was sick and needed help. That's when she smiled. A chilling, knowing smile. "I've already called Tara and Michael," she purred. "They're waiting at our house. We need to discuss Ryan's future and how we're going to handle this situation as a family." Ryan, confused, asked what she meant. "You think this is the first time I've had to save you from a mistake?" she said, her voice dripping with malice. "Ask your father what happened to Jessica." Ryan looked like he'd seen a ghost. Jessica, his high school girlfriend who suddenly moved away years ago. He stammered. What did you do to Jessica?" Deborah just laughed. A short, sharp, terrifying sound. "Nothing she didn't deserve. Now come home, son, without her." Ryan grabbed my hand. We just left. In the car, he was shaking so badly he couldn't drive. He confessed that his dad had always hinted his mom had taken care of a problem with Jessica, but he never understood what that meant. Until now. Jessica had gotten pregnant at 17 and suddenly moved away, but she'd only told Ryan's mom. My heart was pounding out of my chest. We went straight to a hotel. Ryan called his sister, Tara, and put her on speaker. She started crying immediately. She confirmed our worst fears. Deborah had terrorized every woman Ryan had ever dated. With Jessica, she'd threatened the girl's family with some kind of blackmail until they sent her away. Tara then dropped another bombshell. Deborah had a file on me meticulously compiled from before we were even engaged. That night around 3 a.m., we heard someone trying to open our hotel room door. Not knocking, just trying to open it. Ryan peered through the peephole and stumbled back in shock. It was his dad, Michael, just standing there silently. First update. So if you've been following my nightmare, you know my life basically got carpet-bombed by my mother-in-law, Deborah. Her absolute refusal to let me exist as a human being married to her son. I wish I could tell you it calmed down after we fled our apartment and went into hiding, but LOL. No. That was just the pre-game. If you're here for neat, happy endings, go watch some cozy TikTok couple. But if you want to know what it's actually like to get hunted by your husband's family because you dared to marry their precious boy, buckle up. Anyway, we left off at the hotel, right? Me and Ryan basically shaking in a mid-range chain hotel room, trying to process that his dad, Michael, had just stood outside our door at 3 a.m. Not knocking, not saying anything, just standing there. I still don't know if he was trying to scare us or if he genuinely thought we'd open the door and hand ourselves over like toddlers, but either way it was creepy as hell. Ryan was pale and wired, pacing around the bed like a caged animal, and I was texting my aunt at 3:20 in the morning trying to figure out if we needed to call the police or just, I don't know, set up a Home Alone-style trap with the ironing board. We did what any panicked, sleep-deprived couple would do. We piled a chair and my suitcase against the door, checked the peephole every 5 minutes and called down to the front desk, whispering like idiots. The night manager said he'd check the security footage and send someone up. But by the time anyone bothered to show, Michael was gone. Cool. Thanks for nothing, hotel security. I barely slept 40 minutes. When I did, my dreams were all versions of Michael silently lurking in the hallway, holding a butcher knife, or for some reason a giant fish. No idea why, but my brain was broken. At around 6:30, the manager called up and said Michael had left something at the desk for us. Just the way he said it, polite, but definitely uncomfortable, made me want to crawl out of my skin. Ryan insisted we shouldn't go get it, but I couldn't not know. So I sent him down to collect the envelope while I stood at the door with my phone in hand, ready to call 911 if anything felt even slightly off. Ryan came back up looking weirdly gutted, holding a plain manila envelope. Inside were 4 photos of him as a kid. Awkward school pics, him at a birthday party, that sort of thing. And a folded note in Deborah's handwriting. I swear her handwriting is like angry cursive. All sharp points and underlines. The note said, "Family is forever. We can forgive you if you come home and talk to us without her." And then, as if that wasn't enough, she'd drawn a little heart and signed it. Mom. I actually laughed. The kind of laugh where you're almost crying. Like, really? This is your play? Emotional blackmail via yearbook photo? Ryan just sat on the edge of the bed for a while, turning the photos over and over, not saying anything. Sometimes he gets like this, lost in his own head, stuck between wanting to please his parents and wanting to burn everything down. I get it, but it also makes me want to throw stuff. That's when the calls started. First I thought it was just spam. But then the hotel phone rang, which is not normal. I picked up, ready to tell someone they had the wrong number. But it was Deborah's voice. All fake sweet and high-pitched. She said she was downstairs in the lobby and needed to speak with her son privately, and that I needed to come down and face the consequences of my actions. I just said, no, not happening, and hung up. But she kept calling. Both our cell phones, the hotel line, even the stupid WhatsApp number Ryan never uses. Each time her messages got nastier. She said if I didn't come down, she'd start telling people the truth about me. That I was unstable, manipulative, and not fit to be a mother. She threatened to go to my aunt, my friends, even my old neighbors. All because I married her son and wouldn't let her run my life. At this point, Ryan finally snapped out of his fog long enough to text Tara, his sister. He just said, "We need help. Mom is here." Tara, who is probably the only person in that family with a functioning brain, texted back that she was coming over ASAP. And she brought her boyfriend, Devin, who is like 6 feet of pure try me. I've literally never been so happy to see 2 people in my life. Tara brought coffee and 2 bags of snacks and just started cursing out her mom in the hallway. Devin stood at the door with his arms crossed like a bouncer, daring anyone to try something. We spent maybe an hour barricaded in that hotel room, all 4 of us, passing around paper cups of burnt coffee and trying to figure out what to do. Ryan was still in shock. Tara kept pacing and ranting about how Mom has lost it this time. And I kept refreshing my phone, half expecting some viral post about me to pop up. Devin, for his part, just kept muttering that if Michael showed up again, he'd handle it. It was the weirdest double date of my life. Around 10 a.m. it all exploded. There was this banging on the door. Not a polite knock but full on, "Open up right now." Pounding. I jumped about a foot in the air. Devin got there first and just stared through the peephole, then motioned for Ryan. It was Deborah and Michael, both of them looking absolutely deranged in the hallway. Deborah started screaming, "Open this door. This is a family emergency." Michael just stood there, arms folded, not saying anything. Devin told them to leave, and Deborah started shoving the door like she thought she could break it down with sheer willpower. I don't know what I expected, but I definitely didn't expect what happened next. Deborah actually managed to force the door open a few inches. The hotel lock held, thank God, and she reached in and grabbed my arm. Not gently. Not, "I want to talk." It was a full-on claw. She yanked and I yanked back, and for a second, it was just a tug-of-war with my own mother-in-law in the middle of a hotel hallway. I screamed, "Get off me, Deborah." Tara was right behind me, trying to pull her mom's hand off, and Devin was yelling at Michael to back off. A couple of hotel employees finally ran up, followed by some guy in a suit who I guess was the manager. Deborah let go of me, but not before hissing, "You're ruining everything, you stupid girl." Like, okay, Cruella. The hotel staff threatened to call the police if they didn't leave, and Deborah started ranting about how I was kidnapping her son and endangering the baby. Michael looked uncomfortable for the first time but didn't say anything. Tara started filming with her phone, and I honestly hope that video never sees daylight because I look like a raccoon who hasn't slept in a week. The police came, obviously, because nothing says good morning like 5 squad cars outside your hotel. Deborah was screaming at the officers about how she needed to save her son and protect her grandchild, while Michael just glared at Devin like it was his fault for existing. The cops separated us, took statements, and told Deborah and Michael they were banned from the property. Deborah tried to argue, but the officer shut her down. Tara's boyfriend sent me the video just in case. After that, the adrenaline crash hit me like a truck. I felt gross, shaky, and just done. I wanted to go home, but we couldn't. I wanted to call my mom, but well, she's been gone for more than a decade. Ryan tried to hug me, but I just sat on the bed with my head in my hands. The only thing that helped was Tara sitting next to me, whispering that I wasn't crazy, and that her mom had always been like this, but it was getting worse. She said she'd never seen Deborah go this far, not even with Jessica, which, yikes, still not over that revelation. We checked out of the hotel just before noon. The manager apologized, but it was obvious he was just glad to see us go. I don't blame him. Who wants domestic drama in their TripAdvisor reviews? Devin offered to drive us wherever we needed, so we loaded up our stuff into his beat-up SUV, and just sat there for a minute, trying to figure out what the actual hell to do next. Every option felt unsafe. Go home? Not a chance. Another hotel? Deborah would find us. Stay with Tara? Her apartment is tiny and Michael has a spare key. Don't even get me started. Our only real option was my dad's place. He's a retired guy with a big old house and a frankly excellent security system. Plus, he's never like Deborah. He lives about 40 minutes away, but it felt like another planet. The drive to my dad's was silent, except for Tara and Devin quietly debating whether they should change their locks too. Ryan stared out the window, clutching the envelope of childhood photos like it was a bomb. And I just kept scrolling through my phone, watching the group chats blow up. People were asking if we were okay, if the rumors about us splitting up were true, if I'd really threatened to hurt myself. Thanks, Deborah. I didn't even bother replying. I just wanted to get somewhere no one could follow us. Pulling into my dad's driveway felt like reaching the finish line of a marathon I never signed up for. He was waiting on the porch, arms crossed, looking every inch the "don't mess with my kid" dad. I hugged him so hard I nearly broke his ribs. He didn't ask questions, just ushered us inside, handed me a mug of tea and said, "You're safe here. No one gets in without my say-so." God bless old men who still trust in deadbolts and motion lights. We crashed in the guest room, and I finally got a few hours of real sleep. Until my dad's phone started blowing up. You guessed it. Deborah had found his number and was now calling him, demanding he bring her son home and return her grandchild to the family. Dad hung up, then blocked her, which is more than I can say for Ryan, who still won't block his parents. I get it, sort of. He's scared. But it's infuriating. That night, the four of us, me, Ryan, Tara, and Devin, sat around my dad's kitchen table, eating takeout and making a list of everything Deborah had done. It was like putting together a true crime podcast, except the murderer was my mother-in-law, and the victim was my sanity. Tara admitted she was scared her mom would come after her next. Devin said he was ready to call the cops if Michael set foot anywhere near their place. Ryan just kept apologizing over and over, until I finally snapped and told him to stop. This wasn't his fault. Or at least not all his fault. Deborah has been like this forever, and nobody ever called her on it. I don't know where we go from here. We can't stay at my dad's forever, but for now it's the only place that feels safe. Deborah is still out there, making calls, spreading rumors, trying to get everyone on her side. I keep waiting for someone to knock on the door or for my phone to light up with another insane message. Part of me wants to fight back, post the video, go public, burn it all down. But another part just wants to sleep for a week and pretend this isn't my life. If you made it this far, thanks. Seriously, I don't know if I'm looking for advice or just screaming into the void at this point, but it feels good to get it out. I wish I could say it's over, but something tells me Deborah isn't done. She never is. Second update, so yeah, here I am again. If you're still following this story, first of all, I see you and I'm sending you caffeine and solidarity because living it was wild, but retelling it is almost as exhausting. This part. This is where she drags my extended family into the mess, and things get even messier. We'd been at my dad's for maybe 3 days. It was weird. Like being in high school again, but with more swearing and less privacy. My dad's house is old and kind of creaky, but he's one of those guys who still uses an actual answering machine, so there's always a weird beep in the background. I tried to keep things normal, helped with dishes, scrolled endlessly through TikTok, tried to ignore the fact that my notifications were blowing up every 5 minutes with some new drama. Ryan mostly hid in the guest room, playing mobile games or just pacing. We kept thinking, maybe if we just lay low long enough, Deborah would get bored and move on to obsessing about Tara's haircut or Michael's cholesterol again. Ha! If only. The first sign things were about to go off, my cousin Barbara called out of nowhere. She's a couple years older, lives about 20 minutes away, and we're not super close, but she's one of those people who always wants to mediate and keep the peace. She opened with, "So I just talked to your ma. Why is she saying you're," and I quote, "refusing to let Ryan leave the house or see his family?" I almost dropped my phone. I tried explaining, but she interrupted a ton, saying she just wanted both sides. By the end, she was asking if maybe I should just meet Deborah halfway. Which LOL. Yeah, let me just compromise with someone who tried to drag me out of a hotel room by my arm. I hung up, called Tara. She was pissed. She'd gotten the same kind of call. Only her version was that I'd brainwashed Ryan and was keeping the baby from the family. The wildest part? Some people believed it. My Aunt Marilyn, my dad's sister, who's always been a little much, texted my dad an entire essay about family unity and how young girls these days don't respect traditions. I couldn't believe it was happening, but there it was. Deborah had started calling everyone she could find, spinning her version of events, and it was actually working on some people. Ryan at this point was barely functioning. He kept saying, maybe if I just talk to Mom. Maybe if I explain. And I just wanted to shake him. Devin and Tara came over one night with pizza and tried to lighten the mood, but it was awkward. Devin was scrolling through his phone, looking up restraining order drama stories, and Tara kept making nervous jokes. At one point, my dad snapped that if Deborah showed up, he'd call the cops before she made it up the steps. He said it with this look I'd never seen before. Half, I'm not joking, and half, I can't believe this is my life now. Next morning, the real circus started. I went out on the porch to get some air and avoid the smell of my dad's burnt toast. And there it was. A letter taped to the mailbox. White envelope, my name scribbled on the front. Inside was this rambling, half-typed, half-handwritten letter. Deborah said that if I continued spreading lies about her and her family, she'd have no choice but to take legal action for defamation and character assassination. There was even a cease and desist at the top, like she Googled how to write one and then just went nuts with copy-paste. She claimed I was slandering her to neighbors and destroying her son's good name. I read it out loud to Ryan and Tara. Tara was cackling, but Ryan just looked sick. I wish that was the end of it, but this is my life, so of course not. 2 hours later, my phone started blowing up again. This time with messages from friends and weirdly old acquaintances. Someone, I wonder who, had started DMing people claiming I'd been hospitalized for mental issues and was making up stories to get attention. One of my high school friends sent me a screenshot. There was a whole thread in a local Facebook mom group, complete with my wedding photo, and a bunch of people arguing about whether I was unstable or just stressed. I should have known better than to look, but I did. And of course I ended up rage scrolling through comments. Someone actually asked if Ryan was safe at home. Honestly, the urge to reply with the meme was overwhelming. Ryan tried to call his dad to get him to make Deborah stop, but Michael just said that the family needs to do what's best, and sometimes women get emotional. I swear I almost drove over there myself. Devin offered to go instead, but Tara convinced him not to start a fist fight in the driveway. We all sat in the living room, eating ramen out of mugs and watching YouTube on my dad's old TV, half waiting for the next fire to start. Came sooner than I thought. Around 3 p.m. the Ring doorbell chimed. My dad checked his phone and muttered, "You've got to be kidding me." Deborah and Michael were standing on the front lawn, arms crossed, looking like they'd just shown up for a family intervention, not a hostile takeover. I looked at my dad and he just shook his head and pulled on his shoes. He's not a big guy, but he's stubborn, and he was not about to let anyone walk all over him or his house. I went outside with him, Tara right behind me. Deborah started up immediately, saying she was just here to get her son and make sure the baby was okay. Michael hung back, but I could see he was taking in the house, looking at the windows, probably checking for cameras or whatever. My dad told them to leave, said we'd call the police if they didn't. Deborah got louder, started talking about lawyers and family rights and parental duty. She actually tried to push past my dad to get to the door, and I stepped in front of her. She glared at me, totally unhinged. She said, "You think you can keep my son from me? You think you're better than this family?" I just stared right back and said, "We're not going anywhere. Go home." She shoved me, full-on open palm to my shoulder. I stumbled back, but Tara caught me. My dad got between us, and then Michael started yelling at Ryan, saying he was throwing his life away for a girl who doesn't respect tradition. Ryan just stared at the ground. It was chaos. Deborah was shouting. Michael was yelling. Tara was screaming at her mom to leave us alone. I could see neighbors peeking out through curtains. Devin came running out of the house, got between Michael and Ryan, and told them to back off. Deborah actually tried to slap Tara, but my dad grabbed her wrist. She yanked away and started screaming about abuse and assault. That's when the cops showed up again. Guess a neighbor finally called because 2 squad cars pulled up and officers got out looking bored as hell. One of them asked what was going on, and Deborah started in with her story, sobbing about her traumatized son and dangerous daughter-in-law. Michael tried to play the calm, reasonable dad, but the cop just kept writing stuff down on a little notepad. The officer separated us, took statements, and eventually told Deborah and Michael they had to leave, or they'd be arrested for trespassing. Deborah tried to argue, but my dad wasn't having it. He told her if she ever set foot on his property again, he'd file a restraining order so fast her head would spin. After they left, the house was dead quiet. Ryan actually started crying. Not like ugly sobbing, but just silent tears, sitting at the kitchen table. Tara hugged him and my dad just said, "Sometimes you have to pick your real family." Even Devin looked shaken, and he's usually the chillest guy in any room. I went to the bathroom and splashed water on my face, just trying to calm down. When I came back out, I found Tara staring at her phone, her face pale. She handed it to me. Deborah had texted her, threatening to cut her out of the will and never forgive her for taking her brother's side. Tara just shook her head and said, "Honestly, I'm done. I can't do this anymore." I hugged her, and for the first time I actually believed her. She'd always tried to keep the peace, but Deborah had finally pushed her too far. We spent the next couple days basically hiding out. My dad changed the Wi-Fi password because apparently Michael once tried to hack our baby monitor, long story. And everyone kept their phones on silent. I barely slept. Ryan stopped eating much, and Tara alternated between rage texting her mom and stress baking cookies. Every time the doorbell rang, we all jumped. Then the next wave hit. Deborah started messaging extended family, telling them I was unstable, Ryan was being abused, and that my dad was harboring us. My cousin Barbara actually showed up at the house and tried to stage a mini intervention. She brought cookies and this whole speech about healing the rift. My dad basically told her to get her information straight before coming in hot with accusations. Barbara left, but not before giving me this look like I just ruined Christmas. But it didn't stop there. One evening, I got an email, supposedly from a lawyer, warning me to cease all slanderous communication about their last name family, or face legal consequences. The email was full of typos and didn't even have a real signature, so I figured Deborah either wrote it herself or got some random person to send it. I showed it to my dad, who just laughed and said, "Let's see her try." Meanwhile, Ryan's phone started blowing up with texts from old friends, guys he barely even talks to, asking what the hell was going on. Apparently, Deborah was now telling people in their town that Ryan was missing, and I was holding him against his will. Devin offered to go stay at their place. At this point, I was just tired. Not defeated, not giving up, not even close, but tired in that way where you're constantly waiting for the next shoe to drop. I started looking up legal stuff, trying to figure out if we could actually get a restraining order. My dad called a friend who knew a lawyer and got some basic advice, but everything takes forever and costs a fortune. Ryan and I argued about whether to just move out of state. He wanted to, but I didn't want to be forced to run by Deborah. Tara said she wanted to stay close, at least for now. She was worried Deborah would try to find some way around the order. Then a new low. Deborah showed up at my dad's again. This time after dark. She brought Michael, of course. This time my dad didn't even answer the door. He just called the cops as soon as he saw them on the camera. Deborah stood outside, yelling into her phone, saying she was being denied her rights as a grandmother, and that the law would be on her side. The police came, told her if she came back again, she'd be arrested. Michael just glared at the house, then got in the car and left. After that, my dad installed more cameras, put up a new lock, even got one of those doorbell alarms that blare if you touch the handle. I started keeping my phone charged and near me at all times just in case. Ryan finally agreed to block his mom's number, and Tara did the same. It felt weird, like drawing a line in the sand, but also knowing the tide would just keep coming in. The fallout wasn't just family drama. Deborah called my old landlord, tried to get me blacklisted from renting in the area. She sent messages to my friends claiming I was unstable and needed help. Some people ghosted me. Others called to check if I was okay, but you could hear the skepticism in their voices. It was humiliating. One day, I went into the living room and found my dad staring at his phone, mouth tight. He handed it to me, and there was a Facebook post from Deborah, tagging half the family, saying she was praying for her son's safe return and asking for community support during this difficult time. People were commenting, some with prayers, others asking what happened, a few with not-so-subtle digs at me. The comment section looked like a war zone. That night, Ryan and I sat outside on the back steps, watching the neighbor's cat hunt moths. He asked if I still wanted to have this baby, if I was scared it would just make things worse. I told him honestly I didn't know what I wanted, except for Deborah to go away and leave us alone. He nodded and we just sat there not saying anything. The next morning we made a decision. We couldn't keep hiding and hoping it would all blow over. We needed to actually do something. So we started prepping to file for a restraining order. My dad agreed to help with paperwork. Tara said she'd testify if it came to that. She was done protecting her mom. Devin started collecting all the videos, texts, screenshots, everything. It felt like moving from defense to offense for once. Not gonna lie, I was nervous. Suing your MIL? This isn't a soap opera. But here we are. If you've read this far, you know by now Deborah doesn't give up easy. Filing paperwork is just the start. Last update. Okay everyone. Here's the update where things got so public, so messy, and honestly, I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop. The last post ended with us prepping a restraining order after she tried to storm my dad's house, set the family group chat on fire, and torpedo my reputation in our town. If you think the saga peaked there, LOL. Strap in. The week we started the paperwork, it felt like we were living in a bunker. Dad was obsessively checking the security cams. Tara was sleeping on our couch and no one could agree on what to eat. Ryan kept leaving half-drunk cups of coffee everywhere, which drove my dad nuts, but no one had the energy to care about chores. I kept expecting Deborah to show up at any moment, but it actually went weirdly quiet for a bit. Almost like she was waiting for us to make a move. That freaked me out even more. You know that feeling when everything's calm, and you just know it's about to explode? Then we finally got a court date. Took forever. Seriously, the amount of red tape just to file a basic restraining order is wild. My dad helped with the forms, which felt like some sad family project. Tara pulled together screenshots. Devin put together a folder of videos. His phone is now like 80% MIL meltdown footage. And Ryan spent hours on the phone with whoever would listen, trying to wrap his head around the whole thing. I caught him once scrolling through old photos of his mom and him from when he was a kid. He didn't say anything about it, but he didn't need to. That whole week, Deborah went full nuclear online. She started by making a bunch of vague Facebook posts about losing her son to a manipulative outsider and praying for family restoration. She tagged Ryan, me, even Tara. Then she started DMing random people, asking them to pray for her grandchild's safety and help bring her son home. It was so embarrassing. People started looking at us funny at the grocery store. Some neighbors stopped waving. I got weird DMs from people I barely knew asking if the rumors were true. The old ladies at my dad's church group started dropping concerned hints about young marriages and stress. I mean, I even got a text from my ex-roommate from college like, "Hey, are you okay? Heard things are rough. NGL, I wanted to move to another planet." Meanwhile, Ryan was getting texts from Michael, his dad, every other day. Michael's messages ranged from, "You're being selfish," to, "Your mother is heartbroken," to these weird reminders about family traditions and what happened to Jessica. If you read the earlier posts, you know that name still freaks Ryan out. Michael never apologized, never took our side, just kept trying to guilt trip him. I asked Ryan why he even read the messages and he just shrugged. I think he was hoping for some sign that Michael would finally step up, but honestly it was never going to happen. I wish I could say we handled all this with grace and dignity, but mostly it just made us snappier and more awkward as a couple. We fought about stupid stuff like whether to get takeout or try to cook, who was hogging the charger, whether to answer the landline or let it go to voicemail. My dad kept reminding me to eat. Tara kept stress cleaning, and Devin started spending more time at his own place, which I totally get. Even the cat started hiding when voices got raised. The day before court, Deborah pulled her biggest stunt yet. She showed up at my dad's place with Michael and tried to serve us with grandparents' rights papers. I'm not even kidding. She'd found some printout online and written in all the blanks herself. She handed it to me on the porch all smug and said, "I'm going to fight for my grandchild, whether you like it or not." I told her to get off the property and slammed the door. The actual court day was surreal. We all got up before sunrise because Ryan was so anxious he couldn't sleep. Tara did my hair in the kitchen, her hands shaking the whole time. My dad put on his only decent suit, which he hadn't worn since my mom's funeral. We packed all the evidence, printouts, phones, USB drives, the whole 9 yards, into a grocery bag. Ryan and I barely spoke on the drive. He just kept tapping his foot and scrolling through Reddit on his phone. When we got to the courthouse, Deborah and Michael were already there, standing with their arms crossed and faces like stone. Deborah had her hair done and was wearing this weirdly formal dress, like she was there for Sunday service, not a restraining order hearing. The waiting room was tiny and tense. Deborah kept glancing over at us, and Michael stared at Ryan like he wanted to say something but couldn't. Tara sat between us, scrolling through her phone, and my dad kept muttering under his breath about wasting a whole day on this nonsense. The judge was late, so we all just sat there, pretending not to notice the glances from the clerk and the other people waiting for their own cases. One guy kept sneezing, which somehow made everything feel even more awkward. When our case was called, I felt this weird mix of anger and, I don't know, not fear but something close. I was ready to fight, but also half expecting the whole thing to go off the rails because, well, look at how everything else had gone. The judge asked us to explain what was happening, and Deborah immediately launched into this huge speech about losing her son and fearing for her grandchild. She started crying, which, not gonna lie, was a little impressive. She even had tissues ready. Michael just sat behind her, arms crossed. Our lawyer, well, technically my dad's friend's friend who agreed to help us out, tried to lay out the facts. The hotel incident, the trespassing, the fake profiles, the police calls, the letters, the threats. He had screenshots, videos, all of it. The judge kept asking Deborah to let him finish, but she kept interrupting, saying, "They're trying to cut Ryan off from his family and poisoning the next generation." At one point, she tried to hand the judge a stack of printed out emails, but the judge just told her to sit down. Then Deborah started yelling about what happened to Jessica, which made the judge stop and ask for clarification. Deborah wouldn't explain, just kept saying, "He knows what I mean," looking straight at Ryan. I looked at Ryan and saw his hands were shaking. The judge finally told Deborah that if she didn't calm down, she'd be removed from the courtroom. She slammed her hand on the table and hissed, "You're all making a mistake," and then finally quieted. When it was my turn, I tried to just lay it out. How Deborah had been coming after me since before the wedding. How she'd shown up unannounced, called and texted constantly, tried to ruin my reputation, and physically grabbed me at the hotel. I read a couple of the worst texts out loud. At one point I just said, "I don't know what else to do. I just want her to leave us alone." Ryan spoke too. Finally, he told the judge that Deborah had always tried to control his life, that he'd let it slide for years, but this was different. He said, "I can't do this anymore. I love my mom, but I can't let her ruin my marriage." Deborah started crying again, but this time it wasn't as convincing. Michael just kept staring at the floor. The judge asked Tara if she wanted to add anything, and Tara stood up, voice shaking, and said, "I love my mom, but she's hurting people. She needs to stop." The judge nodded and said, "I've heard enough." The ruling felt like it took forever, but the judge finally granted the restraining order. Deborah cannot come within a certain distance of us, can't contact us directly, and can't show up at my dad's house. The judge said some stuff about escalating behavior and how this was about safety, not family drama. Deborah tried to argue, but the judge just ignored her. She started yelling, "This isn't over. You'll regret this," and had to be escorted out by the bailiff. Michael followed, but not before glancing back at Ryan. That look said everything. Disappointment, anger, maybe a little fear. After court, we all just stood outside for a while trying to process what happened. Tara was shaking. Devin grabbed her hand, and my dad actually smiled for the first time in weeks. Ryan just sort of deflated. Like the last bit of hope he had for reconciling with his parents was gone. I felt weird. Not happy. Not sad. Just tired. But also, for the first time, a little safe. But of course Deborah wasn't done. Over the next week, she started telling everyone she'd been wrongly accused and unjustly banned from her family. She posted about us on Facebook, tagged random people, even tried to start a GoFundMe for her legal expenses. Some people in the community took her side. Others messaged me to say they were sorry for what happened. My Aunt Marilyn called again to say she thought it was all blown out of proportion. My cousin Barbara stopped talking to me completely. It messed with my head, NGL. Ryan and I fought about what to do next. He wanted to move out of state, start over somewhere without all this baggage. But I was stubborn. I didn't want Deborah to win by driving us away. Tara said she wanted to stay close, at least for now. She was worried Deborah would try to find some way around the order. Devin suggested we all get together once a week, just to keep an eye on things and check in. For a while, it felt like we were in a weird little support group, sharing updates about whether Deborah had tried anything new. Meanwhile, life kept rolling. The baby was still coming whether we were ready or not. My dad bought a new video monitor for the house just in case. We started looking for a new apartment somewhere not so close to the drama. Ryan blocked his mom on everything and Tara did the same. Devin helped Tara change her locks. I kept my phone on silent just in case, but every time it buzzed my heart jumped. So yeah, that's where we're at. It's not over. It's never really over with someone like Deborah. But we finally have a legal boundary. It feels like a small victory, a hard-won breath. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Have you ever had to draw a line in the sand with family like this? Tell me what you think in the comments below, I really want to know.